Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
Good morning. Welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. I'm Trevor Cochrane. We've got a great show for you today. We are actually going to answer a heap of questions. There's been so many coming through in the last couple of weeks. We've got Shaylee driving the ship this morning because Holly is off having a Mother's Day special event with her young daughters. And Shaylee is carrying the fort for me. She's back in the chair. She knows how to do it, which is great. Now, today we will be answering lots of your questions. We've, of course, got this amazing $50 gift voucher from our friends at Garden Express for the best question for the day. So make sure you get them in. There are already a heap in, and it's a good morning to a whole bunch of our friends, Jenny Napier, all of you guys as you're saying good morning, as you're joining us, Jeanette, June, let's say Rachel, hello, all of you, Lisa, good morning, everybody. It's great to have you with us. I am going to get into your questions. Also going to give you the best deal. Well, this is what I think it is anyway, the best deal we've had all year when it comes to the Garden Express offers. And we've had some great offers, but this one, as far as getting some colour into your garden for springtime, is just an absolute ripper. And maybe what we should do is, without any further ado, go straight to Rowan and get him to tell us about it, because it is a terrific deal. G'day, Rowan.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Trev. How are you?
Very good, thanks, mate. How are you? What's the weather like in sunny Melbourne at the moment?
Not sunny.
It's not sunny.
We had rain all night last night, but it's not raining at the moment. But it is a bit overcast and a little bit gloomy. So I expect we'll have a bit more rain this afternoon.
Well, I can't say it's any different here in Perth on the other side of the country. We've got a big front coming through, very fast moving clouds. Prediction, I think, of 10 mil to 20 mil of rain over the next couple of days, which is great because we desperately need it over here. But one of the great things about the first lot of rain, which I'm very excited about, is that we had a little bit of a tinkle about a week ago. Now we're in this situation where we're going to get a decent amount of rain. It's the beginning of planting season, and there are all sorts of things that people should be planting. Definitely native tube stock and things like that is fantastic. But This is probably, in Perth anyway, the perfect time to be getting spring flowering bulbs in. I know a lot of people have got in early, but this is the moment in time.
It's probably the same most of the places around the country, except for maybe some of the top end where it's a bit warmer. But we like to say Mother's Day, which is this weekend, obviously, is the perfect time to get your spring flowering bulbs in the ground, ready for a beautiful show in springtime.
Well, we do have the great thing is we do have obviously Mother's Day coming up, but you know probably the single biggest thing we get asked about, of course, is your show bags coming out of the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show. We've had a little bit of a run with some things, but you guys have gone and created something that is just super special and very limited. So it really will be a first in, first served, and not too many other opportunities after that.
No, exactly right. I don't expect these ones to last very long. We've put together another show bag, especially for Garden Gurus viewers. So that's this one here. So that's 170 spring flowering bulbs for just $29.
170, did you say?
170. So there's 9 different types in there. You're going to get daffodils, Dutch iris, anemones, Spanish bells, tritilia, tritonia, freesias, renuncs, and great hyacinths in this pack. So that's a value of $106.80 for just $29. That's over 70% off.
Does David know you've done this?
He does. Yes, he knows. I'm going to tell you.
That's amazing. That's incredible value. 170 bulbs for $29.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there's some really good ones in there. I know. I think David and I have talked about this. I'm not sure whether it was on the show, but freesias are actually really hard to get your hands on at the moment, and there has been a real limit with regards to the supply of freesias in recent times. But you've managed to get some of those into this mix as well.
Yeah, so there's some Frisia Hadiko mixed in there, so that's some mixed colours. There's a little bit of everything. Some larger bulbs being the daffodils and the Dutch iris, and then some of these really easy, almost throw and grow type varieties that you don't have to think about. You just pretty much put them in the ground and they do their thing.
That is an amazing deal, mate. Tell me, there's a lot going on. I was just looking at this weekend's episode of the Garden Gurus, and we've got bare-rooted roses in there. There's Wallamai pine in there. And I thought, these are all things that you guys have. So when people are online at gardenexpress.com.au, you can shop all of those things, right? And they can all be delivered.
Absolutely, delivering all around the country. So we're one of the only garden centres that do deliver all around. So we do into quarantine states like WA, Tas. We do all the paperwork and do the spraying and dipping and make sure that we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's there when it comes to quarantine. But yeah, we deliver all around the country. You mentioned bare root roses, so we're just about to get into our bare root rose season. That will kick off probably Monday or Tuesday. If customers want to go or viewers want to go into our coming soon section on the website, you can see the range of roses that will be available this season. You can chuck yourself down on the waiting list so you get notified as soon as they go online so you don't miss out.
It was actually one of the points that I kind of made in the story that I was doing about roses, and I was trying to encourage people to make sure that they plant them into a really good quality potting mix. And I showed off a particular type of potting mix that I rely on. Probably not what you'd be expecting in that it's traditionally an azalea, camellia kind, but they love exactly the same type of soil. So that's why I'd put that recommendation in. But I thought what was really interesting with the story was this fact that when you do go to a garden centre, you do have a limited option of colours and varieties. But great thing about shopping online with you guys is you can just work through all the different varieties that are available. And there's a huge range.
Yeah, I think we've got close to 100 different bare root roses. Don't quote me on that exact number, but there's a close to 100, and that's things from hybrid teas to David Austins to miniatures, climbers, creepers, the whole work. So it's probably I'm pretty sure we can say it's the largest range of roses that you're going to have access to in one place.
Fantastic. And I also noticed I was trolling, I think it was Facebook, and I saw Justin from Anthony Tesla International had put up one of their new flower carpet varieties. It was a standard ball, and I was looking at that just as a feature plant. You forget how spectacular roses are, and particularly with things like flower carpet too, the number of flowers that a single plant can hold at any one time.
Oh, amazing plant, the flower carpet. One thing that I will mention when it's coming to roses, I'm sure we'll touch on it a bit more in the future, but I have actually also been talking to Anthony and Justin about their roses, and we're going to actually offer showpiece roses bare root this season, which is the first time we've ever done that before, and they're going to be at a really great price. So look out for that one. So that's a bare root version of obviously the plants we were selling earlier in the year.
Wow, that's amazing. We'll talk about that no doubt in the future. The important thing is there is a very limited number of these show bags of spring flowering bulbs available, isn't there?
There is. So what we've done for viewers of the live shows is we've pre-released a smallish number of those. So guys, if you do want to take advantage of the bulb show bag, get in online now. But if you do happen to miss out, we've got another allocation that we will put to the website when the show goes to air tomorrow, just so that everybody gets a chance to get their hands on these. So because it really is, as Trevor mentioned before I jumped on, this is probably the best deal that we've had on all year. Save 70%. It's actually over 70% off the regular price, and such a great variety. 170 bulbs, all ready to go in the ground this weekend, or as soon as you. I was
going to say, look, the average front yard in the average house is probably 170 bulbs is probably all you're going to need to really colour it up for sort of late winter, early spring. So this is a pretty darn good deal. Okay, mate, so the way they get these, jump online, gardenexpress.com.au,
Yep.
and it'll be on the front page.
There'll be a homepage on the. There'll be a banner on the homepage, but probably
Yep.
only for the next couple of hours,
Okay.
because I can't stress enough that this is a limited release just for Guru's viewers initially. But it'll be up there for the next little while. You can access it via the Garden Gurus page on our website as well.
Yep.
And on that page, you can see any of the prior offers that we've had that are still available. I think there's a few there, but not too many. We've sold out of most of them this season, which is fantastic. But you can always check in on that page and see what's happening as far as what we're doing with the Gurus.
That's outstanding, Rowan. Mate, another great job. Thanks very much. People are going to love this. Look forward to catching you next week.
Yes.
All right.
Yep. It's always a pleasure, mate. I love to catch up.
Yeah, terrific. Stay dry, my friend. I'll see you next week. What a good deal. Okay, so remember, getting your hands on these is as simple as going to gardenexpress.com.au. And of course, the really cool thing about this online garden centre thing is that you can shop it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they deliver direct to your door. And what a good deal. 170 bulbs, daffodils, Dutch iris, anemone, Spanish bells, tritilia, tritonia, freesias, ranunculi, hyacinths. Just such a great collection of different types of bulbs that'll really colour your garden and colour your life. And that's a good deal. So just make sure you check it out if you're looking for a bit of colour. Now, just quickly, we'll just talk about weather. We're in a changing season now. Really seeing the colours changing in my garden, which is fantastic. But I know, a month and a half ago in Melbourne, the colours were really changing up at that point in time. They'll just about be dropping, I would think, by now. So there's a lot of good leaf litter in there that becomes really quite handy compost. And it's often known as leaf mold, that particular type of compost, but it's incredibly good for microbial life in soils. Now, let's just have a little look at the changes in the weather. We've got Perth, 17 is the minimum, maximum's 24. We are going to get some storms here in Perth. Definitely a lot of rainfall already in the southwest of Western Australia. Those fronts are coming through there and hitting quite hard. Now, that is good news because we have been in a terrible drought over here, and it's desperately needed. So many mature trees that have just given up the ghost and suddenly died. In fact, I lost a huge one in my garden. I think I mentioned it last week. Just so much stress. So a bit of rainfall is going to make a big difference. Now, Adelaide, sunny, minimum of 10, maximum 23. We're still quite warm in Adelaide and Perth. That's quite good. Brisbane's 25, minimum 16. Melbourne's got a shower or two, and minimum 11, maximum 18. That's true autumn weather. Hobart, minimum 11, maximum 17, very similar to Melbourne. Canberra, a bit cooler, minimum 8. But again, maximum 17 is quite warm really for the autumn. And if you're in Sydney or New South Wales, minimum of 14, maximum of 21, and in the north of the state, a little bit warmer. So there's still some really good growing conditions. And that was really the point I wanted to make. When you're sort of over that 18 degrees, up to 25, you're in optimal growing conditions. So it is still time to be really out there and getting into the garden. And it does make it quite pleasant as long as it's not raining on you. So maybe we should get into some questions. Okay, let's fly at your questions. We've got a lot of them coming through. Cassie Tang, you're in Melbourne. You sent us some photos. You're from Templestowe. First year we moved into our home, the mock orange shrubs produced beautiful fragrant flowers. You pruned it once 3 years ago. And when they were taking over the pathway, the result is you didn't get many flowers the following summer. Now, the shrubs are getting very tall. Is it okay to prune back to a manageable size and height? How and when should I do it? It's located on the east side of my house. Now is actually the time to do it. In fact, the next couple of months, it won't matter, but you can do it, and you can do it quite hard, Cassie. They will bounce back. Pruning can affect flowering. So you just have to understand that the harder you prune, the more likely you are to miss out on a bit of flowering. It's just how it is. Okay, let's keep rolling along. Rachel Ruminchek, I hope I got that right. Rachel, you're in Victoria. When should I prune my weeping Chinese maple? Okay, weeping Chinese maple. It's an interesting one. So I think that might be the weeping Japanese maple. I could be wrong. Now, weeping maples, if you prune them, usually you would probably prune them to shape either at the end or sort of the period just after they've coloured up. You don't want to do it going into the middle of summer. So early autumn, I suppose, is the correct timing. But you can prune them during the winter months. Remembering they're going to burst out in the spring with lots of new growth, and you will get it. But try not to prune too hard, otherwise you're going to ruin the effect. So light pruning. If you do that more on a regular basis, it's better for the plant. It stimulates regular growth, and that's really important. Troy Thomas is in Perth. Hello, Troy. Let's have a bit of a look. Trevor asked me to send a couple of photos. Oh, this is right. So, Troy, you were talking about succulents, and you said that you had what you thought was a mold or a mildew or some kind of fungus growing over them. But when we look at these photos, and it's why it's so important to send photos, I can tell you that it's got nothing to do with that. So if I had recommended a fungicide, it would have wasted your money, had no effect at all. What you've got is mealybug, and it's really common in Perth at the moment because mealybug and thrips thrive during hot, dry conditions, and that's what we've had. And they do love succulents. So what you need to do here is just give the succulents a really good drench with eco oil or one of those horticultural oils. What it's going to do is smother out the mealybug, and it's the perfect time to be doing it. It's really interesting. Take a look at that. You can see it's right in the heart of the echeverias and the sedums. They'll get right into the growing stems, and they really do affect these plants and set them back. So you do have to treat them. That was great. Well done. In fact, I might ask Shaylee to put up our how to post a photo on the website tip now, just so you can send them through as you're coming along, because this is a classic example of why we need to have photos when we're answering these kinds of questions. Gardening question you'd like us to answer and you need to send us a photo, we'll simply head to our Facebook page and click on message. Type out your question and click the camera icon to take a photo in the app. Or click the image option and select the image you want to send us. Be sure to allow Facebook access to your camera and camera roll. We check our messages regularly, so sit back and be sure to tune in to the Garden Gurus Facebook Live show every Friday, and you'll hear your answer. All right, that's why it's so important to send those photos through. So use that as a guide. It will make a difference. Jeanette Fenton, you're in Glenorchy in Victoria. I wanted to plant 2 Silver Princess trees. That is a beautiful eucalypt, weeping eucalypt from the goldfields of Western Australia. I'm going to put one in the front and one out the back. The front one has no shade till I can plant and they grow. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. The back has plenty of shade from different trees, chook pens, etc. When would be the best time to buy a plant? And what's the best area to plant? Okay, do the Silver Princess trees need anything specific to help them settle in and grow? They do have a lot of soft-crested cockies, galahs and pretty parrots all love sitting in the trees and picking up bits and throwing them on the ground, which can be a bit annoying at times. But look, you know what? That's the kind of environment that Silver Princess originates from. So look, my suggestion to you with this particular plant is that you put it into a really good free draining soil, and ideally in full sun. If it's in shade, it'll grow towards the light and you do get that real weeping kind of effect. But you don't want them in total shade. They can grow as an under canopy tree, but they tend to be very, very thin. They're not as full as they could be, and so you miss out on a lot of that beautiful weeping foliage. So my suggestion would be that you look at planting them up. Now let's keep going on. Kylie Jarlene Seed. You're in Gympie in Queensland. Was there any discounts on the Still hand tool? Well, actually, no. Look, I'm not sure if there is. I think there's a couple of special deals with Still for Mother's Day. In fact, I think they've got some kits, but I can't tell you exactly what they are. You need to pop into your local Still dealer. And they're telling me the other day, I think I've been saying for a long period of time, there's over 450, but apparently there's well over 600 Still dealers right across the country now. So stick your head in your local still dealer, Kylie. But those tools, those hand tools, they are just, as far as cutting tools go, just sensational. Chrissy at Henry's, Chrissy's over here in Perth. My standard roses are blooming, but it's like the bloom isn't really to its full potential. What can I do to give my standard roses a boost? Chrissy, it's a really good point. My roses are so disappointing at the moment. When you're in extra dry conditions, chili thrip, which is something that we seem to have exclusively over here in the West at the moment, really does take off. Thrips and mites, and to some extent, well, to be honest, thrips mainly, and to some extent things like mealybug really explode when you have long, hot, dry periods, and that's exactly what we've had. So they really gravitate to all the plants. They suck all the nutrients and moisture out of them, and what you're seeing is these flowers just being really badly damaged and the goodness sucked out of them. So what we're really hoping will happen, and what I'd like to see happen, is that we will get some weather that will cool down, that will kill off a lot of the population of the thrips, but I think you're going to need to spray them. And there's a few different sprays. Certainly systemic sprays are a fantastic way to go, but there's also that Yates Advanced product. It is a really good product in treating thrip, and I'll certainly be spraying a number of my roses, but my roses will get an early cutback this year. Normally it wouldn't occur until the 1st of August, but I'm probably going to do it in late May, early June. And the reason is because there's been so much damage done. So hopefully that helps. Kay Bazard, you're in Hastings in New Zealand. That's great to have you joining us all the way from NZ. How do I control morning glory that's invading from a neighbouring property? Morning glory is a really significant weed in some places, and it is a very difficult one to control because it has rhizomes that run through. So those stems, those stems, wherever they touch the ground, they'll drop roots as well. So you do need to use a systemic herbicide. It is the only way you will get control of it. And the best thing you can do is actually go through with a line trimmer. If they're really starting to come through quite strongly, just cut all the tops off and then spray them. And, I hate, suggesting things that are controversial, but glyphosate is going to be your most effective control. There's some other really strong herbicides that, blackberry and tree killer and things like that is also extremely effective when it comes to morning glory, but it is a terrible weed, and you do need to get control of it, and you probably need to go and help the neighbour as well, because they will lose control of it, and of course it affects everybody in the district. Okay, I hope that helps. Jeannie Napier is back here in Perth. Can Trevor answer why my oranges are falling? They're falling probably, Jeannie, if they're getting spots on them, and I think I saw some photos where they've got spots on them because they have got fruit fly in them. And fruit fly is also another one that's quite prominent in Perth this year. A lot of activity with the Mediterranean fruit fly damaging fruit. If it does get damaged, the first thing the oranges will do is drop the fruit. So I suspect that's what it is. Jeannie, cut them open, have a look, give us a bit of feedback. Christine Rankin is also over here in Perth. She bought a Gardenia Professor Pucci. It's a terrific gardenia. It's a larger form gardenia, larger foliage, but also larger leaves. Larger flowers. And it's a ripper of a plant to grow, certainly in hot, dry climates like Perth. You've decided to keep it in a pot. I was wondering if that will be successful. But on the back patio, it gets morning sun and you're in Stirling. And the answer is yes, it will grow well in a pot, but understand this is one of the larger gardenias, so you do have to give it a bit of extra space. Probably talking about a 400 millimeter across pot with a depth sort of similar if you want to get the best possible results. Swapna Pendiala, I hope I got that right, Swapna. I've got lavender cuttings. How do I plant them directly into the soil? Can I do it at the front of the house, which is facing east? It's very hot in summer. They love hot, dry conditions. They hate shade. So the real thing is to grow lavender, you grow them from tip cuttings. And those tip cuttings don't want to be any more than that sort of distance, which is about 5 to 8 millimeters maximum. They will grow from cutting. Most lavender varieties will grow quite well from cutting. So yes, don't be scared to take cuttings and give it a try. But full sun, free draining soil. Don't let them dry out. They'll get established through the winter months. They'll probably even produce some flowers in the early spring. They'll still be tiny little plants, but they will get through the summer because they love hot, dry conditions. Okay. John and Alison Collins, you guys in Maru in New South Wales, seeking some advice on what we call our sound mound. It is a 60-degree, 3-metre bare mound that we grew a Leighton's green on top of. So that's a big conifer to protect us from the new highway that went through just south of Berry in New South Wales. But now I've taken away all the weeds. It's bare. I'd love to know your thoughts on what to do with it now. It would be great. It would be really, really good if you could send us some photographs. But just as a tip, if you've had a conifer on there, conifers drop their needles, and those needles are very acidic and they'll acidify the soil. Now, that's an opportunity because it means that you can grow plants that love acid conditions. So things like rhododendrons and azaleas and things like that, they will grow quite well. But if you're looking for something that's going to screen off a highway and reduce the sound, well, that's a whole different thing again. And that's where probably some of the things like some of the more upright forms and more columnar forms of lily-pilly might come into play. So maybe a photograph for this one, John and Alison, that would be fantastic. Lee Verrill, hello. When can I cut back my mandivilia? You're in Brisbane. You can do it right now, Leah. It's not going to be a problem if you cut them back in Brizzy. You don't get that cold that they're going to deteriorate. And to be honest, if you cut them back right now, there's still a month and a half of pretty solid growth before conditions get that cool that it'll slow down growing. If you're in Melbourne, if you're in Tasmania, don't cut them back. Wait until the springtime. Get them through the winter. Linda Cooper, you're in Hobart. Hi, great to see you back on TV. We are, and we're getting towards the end of this season, actually. So we've got about another 2 or 3 episodes to go, and then we will rest over the winter, very much like your deciduous plants. I've just watched a TV episode about hanging baskets making a comeback, and they are. Can you tell me if I'm meant to line the coconut fibre with something first? I notice the water runs straight through. So really the important thing here is making sure that when you put your coconut fibre in, you then go and put a really good quality potting mix. Now, the potting mixes for hanging baskets are quite different to normal potting mixes. If you're using just a general potting mix, you will find water will really flow through quite quickly, which means you have to water more often. But if you use an indoor plant potting mix, like the one from Osmocote, you'll find it's in a grey bag. I think it's like a 5 litre or 10 litre bag. That's incredibly effective because it has large amounts of cocoa peat in it. Now, that cocoa peat has the ability to hold moisture and then slowly release it, but it's still porous, so it allows roots to grow through, which is why the indoor potting mix is so good for hanging baskets. Hopefully that helps. Christine Rankin's got another question. I've noticed scale on my native frangipani. It isn't on the leaves, but should I just leave, treat, or remove the affected leaves? It isn't on all the leaves, I see. The answer is, Christine, you probably should just try and remove the affected leaves and give it a spray, depending on how big it is, but give it a spray with some white oil. It's probably the perfect time to actually knock them back. Drew and Michael, hello, you guys are in Freo, still over here in Perth. We've got a question, and thanks so much for your support too. We scored a whole bunch of green Dracaena branches today, and I'm worried it's a bit too late in the season to stick them in the ground. It's cooled off pretty quickly, and I'm scared they won't send out roots. Should I take my chances, pot them up in a warm place instead? Look, you know what? I would put them into a potting mix. I think that's a good idea. Put them in pots. Don't be scared to put a whole bunch into the same pot too, because all that's going to happen is they're really going to put down roots over the winter months. And then come springtime, don't be scared to pull them out of the pot, break them up and plant them wherever you want to put them. And that'll work really well. Drew and Michael, I hope that helps. Jeanette Fenton, hello. Thank you, Read the Silver Princess question. That's okay. Front yard has no trees planted yet, and therefore no shade at all. But I do plant some trees to create shade. I think you do want to plant some trees. We'll be off to buy Silver Princesses on payday. Plenty of full sun areas here. Good thing about Jeanette as a tip is that this time of the year is a great time to go out to a lot of those tube stock nurseries that grow seedling trees. You don't need to buy big ones. These guys will establish very quickly as tube stock this time of the year. So hopefully that helps save a few bucks along the way. Diana Vanderkoot, I hope I got that right. You're in Shelley in WA, Diane. What's your show in the morning? You're talking about pest control. The one thing I would like to know is how to control green and brown grasshoppers. They've really annoyed you this year. You've obviously got, they're over your lemon and lime tree. And you've ended up covering up the trees. Okay, brandbaits. You're in Shelley, so if you head down to your local Mitre 10, I think maybe even Bunnings stores, you'll find, and definitely independent garden centres. I'm not sure the closest one to you. It might be Waldex Melville. Most of these guys will sell brandbaits. Now, brandbaits are a bait that I think carbaryl is the chemical that they use in them. Certainly not something that you want to be throwing around randomly all the time, but it will get a really good result when it comes to cricket and grasshopper control. They love the bran, and the chemical itself takes them out very quickly. So it gives you a really good control of those kinds of pests. Mel Morrow got a tamarillo tree. It's over 6 foot high and wide, but the fruit is only a quarter of the size to what they should be. Nearly finished fruiting. I'm from New Zealand, and it seems that they have fruited too early. Thoughts? You're in the Central Coast area. Interestingly enough, Mel, this is something that I've also experienced in my garden. Now, my garden has been dry and the plants have been stressed, and it's natural under those environments and circumstances that the fruit will be a bit smaller. But what I think is really interesting here is that it's also driven by nutrition. And so feeding particularly highly productive plants like tamarillos is vitally important. And it really does make a huge difference to the quality of the fruit and also the size of the fruit. So I would be suggesting, and look, there's no point right now because as you pointed out, they're finishing fruiting, but they'll be coming into flower pretty soon. And at the point of flowering is the point where you need to be feeding them. So that's really important. Let's go to the Gold Coast in Queensland. Lynn Mendenew Ryan, hello. I want to pass a message on to Trevor, re my question last Friday. He said my gardenia could be affected with scale year after year because of nearby plants. He was spot on. The little gem magnolia is in the same area and has got lots of mealybugs. Could Trevor please advise how I can control it? It's a tree between 15 and 20 foot high. Right, so you've got a mature little gem pretty much at its maximum height. And once you do get mealybug into them, they're quite difficult to control. But there's this super cool, in fact, you know what? I'm looking at these photos and that's not mealybug. That's woolly aphid. And that's a different pest altogether. So that might not be the source. If you're getting the same thing on your gardenia, which is highly possible, then you've found your host tree. Solution, however, it's probably going to be 2 sprays. And the best way to spray, and I know it sounds controversial, but you can get one of those high pressure sprays and you just put it on the thickest spray as far as the particles that come out and spray up and down the tree using white oil. Now, the good thing about a larger tree is it's easy to spray under the foliage where this pest sits. You want to use a wetting agent. You want to use a horticultural oil, eco oil, or pest oil, or something like that. But at the same time, you also want to make sure that you do come back and give it a second spray with an insecticide. Now, you probably want to get a concentrate insecticide, mix it up in a bucket, and absolutely drench the tree. And the good thing is you can do it from the distance with these high pressure sprayers, but obviously just pick the right day. You don't want to do it on a windy day, and you don't want to do it on a day when it's going to rain. So there's my advice. I suspected that was the case, and it proved right. Sue Hall, you're in Brisbane. Something's eating your veggies and strawberry leaves and sunflower leaves and hydrangeas and banksia leaves and citrus. Now, you've tried all manner of sprays to no avail. Now, that does sound quite concerning. I would love to have a look at some photographs. I would love you to send through some photos. Interestingly enough, the control for something like this is going to be one of those generic sprays that handles chewing and sucking insects. And in the old days, we would use something like carbaryl, but there are a bunch of other alternatives these days. Yates Advanced is a very, very effective treatment. I'm not sure whether it's registered for all of those different plants, but look, it's worthwhile popping into your garden centre saying, I need to get something for chewing insects because I've got something that's eating the leaves, and that should help. I suspect you might find that you've actually got 3 or 4 different things all at work doing similar kinds of damage. Jeanette Luscombe, hello. You're from Mansfield in Victoria. Is it too late to plant Photinia Red Robin and Magnolia Pearl? It is the perfect time to plant them. This is when you should be putting them in, Jeanette. Good question. Thank you. Okay, Ginny Napier, you sent us some photographs. I'm going to have a look at them. I've developed a pretty garden near the front door, but as we are new to composting, developed the first lot, which is beautiful, dug it into the garden, and now you're getting all these seedlings. Look at that. And you'll find that, if it's veggie waste and stuff, that you're getting tomatoes and pumpkins and cucumbers, which you are, they're not going to do anything this time of the year. The best thing you could do is get a 3-prong hoe and just hoe them back into the topsoil. It will really make the difference when it comes to keeping them nice and healthy. What I mean by that is the germinated seedlings are full of goodness. That goodness will just go back into the soil. So yeah, a 3-prong hoe. You don't have to work super hard, Jenny. It's just a light cultivation over the top of the soil, and that compost will be doing the world of good to the health of your plants. I'm seeing exactly the same thing in my garden at the moment too. Jeanette Fenton, hello, you're in Glenorchy. Yes, you are. We have a small area with Nellie Kelly passion fruit. Rootstock. Oh, you've got the rootstock coming up. Now, it's your own fault for not removing the shoots in time. It would be the same product for Morning Glory. It would be a glyphosate product. The Nellie Kelly rootstock is what they call the blue passion fruit, Passiflora caerula. It is a horrendous weed if it takes off, and particularly in sandy soils, free draining soils, or if the plant goes into stress, often the rootstock will start sending out suckers, and you've got to remove them. You've reminded me, I've actually spotted a runner on my plants at home, and mine are just growing up the fence, the chook pen, but I need to pull that away because the rootstock will take over, and then you'll end up getting no Nellie Kelly passion fruit at all, and you want them. Lynn Winstanley, okay, you sent us some photos too, Lynn. Lynn's in Claremont over here in Perth. It's a beautiful suburb. Can you tell me if this is a Dracaena? Can I cut it in half and then plant the top half? Let's have a look at this. All right, you've got a Dracaena called Dracaena messiangiana. It is the Chinese happy plant. And what I would do with that is I would cut it back definitely in half. It'll produce all little side shoots, but the top plant, you'd strip the foliage off all the way down the stem. You'd probably only still plant that much of it, so about a foot or so with the foliage and the stem stripped into a really good quality soil. You could do it now. We're borderline, so you really want to move. But the stem underneath that, you're going to have, a cane, I don't know, still probably another 2 foot long under that. And you can cut that into pieces that long, and you lay them sideways down. You don't push them into the soil. You lay them sideways down on the top of the soil, and you'll see there's a little button on all of them. That's a little growth bud that's going to burst through. It'll drop roots through the bottom of the cutting, and the growth bud will come up through the top. And this is actually a really good time of the year to do that. So you could end up with, anything close to maybe 5 or 10 plants from that. So do that. Yeah, what a nice problem to have. It might also need repotting too, just as a little tip for the bottom plant, and give it a feed. Okay, Christine Rankin, thanks for the advice. Native frangipani's huge. Hubby wants it gone, but I said no way. Okay, this is interesting. We decided to reduce its size by a third. Look, that's a good way. That's the best thing to do, is bring it back down to a manageable size, and then you can control it the right way, Christine. Good advice, and a good strategy. Leonie Drew, you're in Adelaide, and it is dry. It's like Perth. I've got an azalea in a large pot in shade. The branches are getting a bit long. Can I trim it this time of the year? If you do, you will affect your flower in the spring. Probably the best time to trim it's really just after it's finished flowering, which is generally September. So I would suggest you look at that. Annie Michelatis, hello, good morning. Can I give you my opinion? What's the fastest growing screening small tree 3 to 4 meters high? Just recently did some recommendations for a landscape project where they needed to screen a little bit higher than that, but 3 to 4 meters. And the absolute best, as far as I'm concerned, is the evergreen magnolias. And you've got Little Gem. There's a whole bunch of varieties actually these days. Some of them are only getting to 5 to 6 meters. So Annie, if you planted them alongside each other, gave them a little bit of extra room, width room, and kept pruning the top, you'll encourage them to develop more of a bushy but still upright column kind of habit. So I've certainly achieved that with things like Little Gem at my place where I wanted a bit of a screen going. So you could do that for sure. No problems at all. Our good friends at the Kalamunda Garden Festival just given us a great comment. Thanks very much, guys. Lots of love to you guys. I know you've got another show coming up at the beginning of June. We'll certainly try and get a bit of a chat with you before maybe that gets going. Claire Moore, where are you, Claire? Not quite sure. Remember, tell me where you're from. Question is regarding potting mix. Are the premium potting mixes worth the extra cost, or would adding some blood and bone and water crystals to a cheaper mix be just as good for the plants, considering they're being fed a fertilizer every fortnight? Claire, this is going to be our question of the day. I'm absolutely sure of it. Potting mix is the key to successful growth of plants. Plants, they're all determined by the strength of the root system. If the potting mix is cheap, generally it means that it hasn't been composted. You'll know that on the show, we're always recommending Osmocote potting mix. And the reason we do that is they have this policy, this standard policy, where all the organics in that potting mix have to be composted for 16 weeks. Now, the reason that's important is as the composting process occurs, it uses nitrogen out of the soil. Now, nitrogen is what greens our plants, and there'll be so many people who will relate to what I'm about to tell you. This is so important. If you've ever bought a cheap potting mix, even if you've added some blood and bone in there or some other additives along the way, you'll probably notice that the plants will turn a light green color. And that's because the organics are still breaking down, and in the process of breaking down, they're taking the nitrogen out of the soil. And if there's not nitrogen, a lot of nitrogen in the soil, but you put a new fresh plant in that potting mix, it'll take it out of that soil. And that's why your plant will suddenly turn a yellowish color. And a really good indicator, if you ever want to try this for yourself, just buy one of those cheap bags of potting mix, $3 or $4 or $5. Buy a really good one. Then grow some tomatoes or grow some petunias, those fast-growing plants in the potting mixes, and just compare them. Have one pot with one lot in, one pot with another, put them next to each other in the same spot, same amount of water, and have a look at the difference. It is generally around about 50 to 60% difference in growth. So that's why you always go for spending an extra $2 or $3, $4 maybe on a decent bag of potting mix that will have the water crystals, will have the blood and bone, will have all of the biostimulants and all the other things that they put into these professional potting mixes. It's vitally important that you go for the best potting mix. Honestly, it's just not worth killing off your favorite plants. Now, I'm going to tell you that, and then I'm going to show you my plant of the week, and you're going to scratch your head and go, that's an interesting choice of plant of the week. Do you know what this is? It is, of course, a ginger. Now, this was a ginger that I popped in from a little corm about that big. And now, this is what I've just pulled out. And you can kind of see what we've got here to play with. Now, those two on this side, I'm going to replant. And I'm going to let them sit in soil. Those on this side are going to go into the kitchen. And I'm going to cut the stems about there and there. Then I'm going to cut the stems off at the base. I'm going to put them in a jar of vinegar. And the reason is pickled ginger is absolutely delicious. Fresh ginger is even better. And as we move into the cold season, ginger is one of those things that we use so much of, and it's so expensive, but it doesn't have to be. You can grow it at home yourself. Now, I mentioned about potting mix. I used really good quality potting mix for this ginger, but I grew them in trays with that much soil in them. So the trays are that wide, that much soil, and they were just hand watered consistently. I grew them in the glass house because I wanted the conditions to be as hot as possible. But the ginger will probably end up with, the best part of 10, 12 kilos of ginger through to use during the winter months. And of course, adding it into soups and stir fries and things really does not just add that spice and flavor, but it warms you up from the inside out. And growing your own at home has never been easier. It's not the time to be planting it though. I just wanted to show you what I'm harvesting. This is a great time of the year for harvesting all sorts of things. If you are going to grow root vegetables at the moment, it's got to be things like carrots, radishes, beetroot. any of the root veggies, parsnips, all of them are going to grow really well. And here in Perth, and certainly warmer climates, not where you get frosts, but certainly warmer climates, even things like potatoes will do super, super well if you put them in to the soil now. And I did say a really good quality soil, but you don't have to use a lot of it. In the case of the ginger is very shallow rooted. The rhizomes run across the top of the soil anyway. So the plants have done remarkably well, albeit I have cheated the environment a bit because I've been growing them in a glass house. But try the pickle. The pickle idea, actually, I learnt that from Nobu, and you'll know Nobu restaurants. Well, Nobu himself does this most amazing pickled ginger stems, and they're often done as a garnish on plates that are served in his Japanese restaurant. But in this particular instance, they can be used any way you love. If you love ginger, it's certainly a great plant to grow. Annie, thanks very much. You've got that growing. Good. Check yours. The reason I showed it to you also is our conditions have cooled down really quickly suddenly as we're getting cold nights, and I'm seeing deterioration of the ginger plant. So it will die back down during the winter. Some of it I'm going to leave in soil, some of it I'm going to harvest and use. So, and of course it does store pretty well too. Keep it dry, that's the key. Shaylee. Now, Shaylee went on holidays just recently, and that's why we didn't have her with us, and Holly's has jumped in the chair. But Shaylee was blown away as she explored the north of Western Australia, Exmouth, Carragini, Karratha, Broome. Sounds like the holiday of a lifetime. What she encountered was a lot of spinifex and not a lot of foliage. And this really gets down to something I talked about Egypt as well. What happens is, in the case of Cairo, most of Egypt, there's only about a centimetre or so of rainfall a year. So nothing's really going to grow in that. You have to supplement that if you really want to grow plants, because most plants have evolved with regular or certainly reasonable rainfall at certain times of the year, cacti and succulents. But even they won't grow in this environment. Spinifex is adapted. It's a form of grass, and it's adapted. And what it looks like is it dries off and dies during the summer months. And you've probably seen every once in a while, you'll see those balls of spinifex rolling along. Well, that's a dead one. But a lot of the ones that Shaylee's got in this picture here, they're actually alive. They're just sitting there dormant. And the peak of summer is when they really sit there and just I suppose it's a bit like deciduous trees. They literally go into hibernation. And as soon as the rainfall comes, which usually occurs either in the cyclone season or, if you get to this time of the year, there's some fronts coming across, there'll be a bit of rainfall and suddenly they will green. They don't go completely green. They always remain that sort of lighter color. And a lot of that's got to do with reflection of light as well. But this is a classic example of a plant that's adapted. And if you had no rainfall and you've got not a lot of goodness in the ground, and you don't have any time, then spinifex is actually something you could consider planting at your place. If you get a lot of rainfall, it won't actually grow. It just gets too wet. Such a fascinating plant and a really good example of adaptation and evolution in environments. So, that's the answer for you, Shaylee. Gail Belmrose, I hope I got it right. Rust on Frangipani. This season was so bad during the Central Coast of New South Wales. What to do? Humidity is the killer when it comes to the spread of rust. It is very problematic, actually, and it can do a lot of damage to your frangipanis. I think I talked last week about there's two types. So there's acutifolia, that's the frangipanis. They've got a leaf, and it's got a pointy end on it, acutifolia. There's obtusa, and that's the one that's got the rounded foliage at the end. Now, that's the evergreen frangipanis, and you do have to treat those if they've got rust. There are a number of fungicides, and what I would recommend you do is you actually get two different rust fungicides because it's really hard to get rid of. Apply one, leave it for a couple of weeks, apply the second one, leave it for a couple of weeks, apply the third one, leave it for a couple of weeks, apply the fourth one, and the rust will be gone. With the acutifolia, they are about to drop their foliage because they're deciduous. And all you really want to do is make sure at this point in time that you've raked up that foliage, take it away. I would burn it, personally. That's what I would do with it. Definitely don't stick it in the compost because you're just going to spread the rust around. Hopefully that helps. Margaret Campion, she's in Belgrave in Victoria. My magnolia tree has been a very healthy plant in a pot, but unfortunately the plant got too big for the pot. One of the roots started going through a hole into the ground. I've planted it again in a bigger pot, but it's looking quite sick. What should I do? They will bounce back. They're remarkably tough, but you do have to remember when you transplant something and you cut some roots off, you're literally cutting off the food source and moisture source to a whole bunch of foliage. So if you reduce the foliage down at the same proportion of the root system, you'll find the plant will recover a lot quicker. Right now though, Margaret, you've done the job, so I would leave it. I wouldn't change too much. Prune away any dead wood, give it a good soak with sea salt. That does the world of good. Leonie Drew, another question. You're in Adelaide, that's right, Leonie. My yesterday, today, tomorrow is in full sun and in a large pot. Use sea salt fortnightly. It hardly flowers. Should I give it a good trim? Okay, there's a couple of things here, and it's a really good point, Leonie. Sea salt is a soil tonic. It's a plant tonic. It's about the health of the plant, but it is not a fertilizer. And yesterday, today, tomorrow, Brunsfelsia is a really vigorous growing plant that requires a really well-balanced diet of fertilizer. I would recommend you go for the power feed with Troforte technology in it. You can get that from your local Bunnings store when you're buying your sea salt. Don't get the liquid, you want the granular, and you have to look on the label and you'll see it says with that Troforte technology. It means it's got the microbes, but also a really comprehensive suite of micro and macronutrients. So we have got 9 minutes to go. I'm going to try and get through all of your questions. There's so many. I hope that helped, Leonie. Jeanette Fenton, hubby and I discussed growing ginger in our new netting enclosed veggie garden with the IBC wicking beds. Mentioned a few weeks ago, do you buy the ginger from a nursery or supermarket? I just bought it from the supermarket, and I love ginger and cooking too. So simple, just bought it from the local, actually I bought it from the local Chinese grocer. They had a whole bunch of stuff that I think that they bought from somebody who'd grown it locally. So it was adapted to the environment. The only thing is, as I said, unless you've got a heated environment, a glass house or something like that, don't worry about planting it now. Wait until we get some warmer weather. October is usually the time to plant. Natelka Hatanka, I hope I got that right. You are in Kuka in Sydney. Great that you're talking about ginger. I need to repot mine. Is now a good time to repot, or should I wait to spring? Well, now's a good time to harvest it, and you can repot the stuff that you're not going to use. It's not really going to grow in Sydney through the winter. It'll pretty much sit dormant. But if you've got it in some good soil, it'll get some roots out, be ready to go as soon as the spring hits. So that's good. King Liao. Hello, King. It's good to have you join us. King's a big supporter of us. Should I bring my pot of ginger under cover in a sunny spot? I've started something here, haven't I? From its current outdoor location. Do you know what? I would wait until probably the middle of June, King, because you're in Perth, before I worried about bringing it into a spot where it's protected, because you want to get as much sun on as you can. What you don't want is any cold frosts. So middle of June, late June, you should be fine. Cat Hugh, I hope I got that right. How can I strengthen my frangipanis? The ants are eating them from the trunks up. I've tried flooding with water. They take off, but the plants aren't recovering. Okay, Cat, this is probably because you've got scale in your frangipani trees. What I would recommend you do is you give them a really good hose down with a horticultural oil, again, pest oil or one of those. Soak them top to bottom as much as you possibly can, and then they should recover. What you can do, if you really want to get the ants to go away, drench the ground around the base of the trunk with a wetting agent. So you're really making sure water is getting in, so there's no dry pockets that they can sit in or access into the plant. And then the second thing is get some talcum powder and put a line of talcum powder around the outside the base of the trunk of your frangipani tree. And the ants will not cross that line. They then therefore can't get up into the tree. They can't feed the scale, and the scale will eventually get picked off, or it'll die as a consequence of your spraying, and the ants will go somewhere else. So hopefully that helps, and that will just give your frangipanis a fair go. That's all they're looking for. Fiona Goodrich, you're in Hammersley. When do I prune my dwarf mandarin tree? I have about 30 left on the tree, which will be off in the next few weeks. Do I prune them right away? I would be pruning them immediately after you've harvested the fruit. and I would give them a good feed at that moment in time, Fiona. That's the simple way to go about it. Lynn Stanley, one more question. You recommended a product for greening up the leaves on my gardenias, but you said that it starts with the soil first. Can you help, please? Look, really what you want is an iron-rich fertilizer. And there are a number of rose fertilizers that are really suitable also for gardenias. Right now is the time to get a fast action if you can. So I'm going to suggest something quite radical, but something like Rich Grow's Black Magic. It's a rose fertilizer. Absolutely brilliant. It's got a very high level of iron, and that works exceptionally well when it comes to gardenias. So hopefully that helps. Okay, well, that's been a lot. I think we've got one more question, and then we're going to leave you for the day. Susan Hall, if I buy a premium potting mix, would I still have to add in perlite or something to drain easier? No, that's the beautiful thing about premium potting mixes is they've really been engineered exceptionally well. That's a really important thing. I think that's something that, you know, when you buy a premium potting mix, that's the one with the red ticks, that red box, the Australian standard. It's going to guarantee good drainage, fertilizer. It's not going to have any nitrogen drawdown. It's going to do the job for you. So hopefully that helps. Okay, I think that's it for the day. I think we'll see you next Friday when we come back with another show. I need to announce our lucky winner of the $50 gift voucher from Garden Express. Remember, you can take this and you can shop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when you want. Claire, and of course Garden Express delivered direct to your door. It's Claire Moore, and it was because of that question about potting mix. Such an important question. Get the soil right, you will have the best garden in the street. Claire, if you could please message us on Facebook with your email address, we will then organise for that to be delivered direct to your email box. And that's it. Now, please share this with your friends. We haven't had the biggest of audiences today, so we're coming to the end of the season, but hopefully you have enjoyed the show. But if you hit like, you're then sharing this with all of your friends, which helps us as well because the audiences are very important as well. We will be back next week. Remember, send us photos with your messages, with your questions, and always tell us the location of where you're based. It does help an awful lot. We'll be back next Friday morning with another live show. We've got the Garden Gurus on Channel 9 tomorrow. It's episode 11. Some fantastic advice coming through and a lot of variety, and you're seeing some new faces in the likes of, you know, Simon Holloway, whose enthusiasm is just fantastic. We've got a great team, and Nev's back. He's had a knee reconstruction. You'll see him back as well. So we're all on this week's show and the next 2 weeks. So there's 13 episodes in this series, and then we'll take a break. We'll probably do this for the next 3 or 4 weeks before we take a break so that we get you right up into winter, and then we'll let the gardens rest through that period of time. If you've got any questions, stuff that we haven't answered, then simply just check out our website. It's a great resource. And the other thing I'd say to you is if you want to watch any stories from the Garden Gurus, just go to our YouTube channel. It's got 25,000 people follow it and watch stories all the time. It's a great resource. Wow, it's been non-stop for a solid hour. I can talk, can't I? Thanks very much for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you next week for the Garden Gurus Live, and I'll hopefully see you on Channel 9 tomorrow for the Garden Gurus. Happy gardening, everybody.